I need to find an extension cord so I can plug it here.
Yeah.
So I can see. It's part of the budget, Melissa.
Very strict budget.
Yes. Very, very narrow. As in the things that we could also talk about.
Yes.
Don't want to get in trouble.
No.
All right, Melissa, today we are back on. We are, I think, episode 22, 23.
Oh, yeah. I think so.
Yeah. We've been doing it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we've grown our subscriber base.
Yeah.
So, and we have our, we got our Reels things. We got all sorts of things. Now I just got to get on Instagram.
Yeah. That would be good next move.
That would be. Okay. Well, Melissa, today, we are circling back to something we talked about before, but it's in the news so much now and the stories are getting so ridiculous that I think we have to touch on it again.
Yeah. I think daily there's another headline that comes across, and we're talking about Ozempic.
That's right.
Or the other medications that are similar to it. And yeah, there's been all kinds of articles, come across our feed every day, whether it's Ozempic face or, what happens after these people have been on medications for a year. Is it really working anymore? Are people having complications? Are there other things that you can do that mimic the medication? So there's been all types of hot topics in the news lately. So we thought we would just kind of revisit about it.
Yeah, exactly. And so today, right, we'll be talking about a couple of things. Specifically, number one, right, people have been taking Ozempic. Some people have been taking it for a year. What are we seeing even in our own clinic that are happening to patients that have been on it for a long time? Of course, the second piece, people can't get it. I mean, speaking of news articles, we have people going to Mexico.
Yeah, please don't.
Trying to buy this off a street vendor. I mean, it's getting kind of ridiculous. Almost like, is this like cocaine? Or right? And then, like you said, there are things that Ozempic does to the body that we can mimic that can produce pretty much the exact same results. But it's just going to take a little bit more work.
Right. Just a little more effort.
That's right. So we're going to touch on all those things. So hopefully people find this helpful. Hopefully people share this. All right, Melissa. Oh, I have to push my music thing because, wait, does that work? Our transition music. It sounds really cool.
I love it.
There we are. Okay, well, let's start with the top part. Right, exactly, Melissa. A lot of people, they've taken Ozempic. The two things I've heard from patients who take it, who have lost a lot of weight, is number one, they don't eat as much, right? And number two, it really works with their craving. But what we've seen is when people can't get the medication anymore, they are eating back to their normal things, right? Or number two, they're eating everything they're craving again. So we've seen that when people who can't get it, but also people who've been taking it for a year. It's almost like after a year, no more weight loss. People don't lose any more. They try to up the dose. They get more nausea. They still don't lose any more weight. And then the weight starts coming back. In fact, we had a patient the other day that's already gained about 30 pounds back. And he's still on it. It's just not working anymore.
Right. And I think we've seen that even in our diabetics well before this medication was used for weight loss. We would see some initial weight loss with our diabetics, maybe 10, 15 pounds, nothing super crazy in most cases. But eventually that plateaus. Maybe they maintain that, but a lot of people just kind of float back up to where they originally were. Our bodies are very adaptable. That's why we even see things like weight loss surgery and things like that. Ultimately, your body finds a way to consume more, even though it shouldn't be able to.
Correct.
And so that's why a lot of, procedures and medications and programs and things like that just don't have a long acting effect. So it really boils down to what can you do?
Correct.
And I think we've seen the people that are really successful with these medications are the ones that were ready to make a change, and they're kind of using it as a tool to kind of help things along, but they were already ready to make a big lifestyle change. And so it does help it along. They're usually a little bit more successful, lose more weight, keep it off longer. Whereas those that just take it to let the medicine do everything, they're not going to be as successful in the long term.
Yeah. I think we've even had people tell us well, I like it because I don't have to think about it. But right, patients that are using it kind of like that direction where like, I don't want to really change what I want to eat. I don't really want to do anything different. I just want this medicine so I don't think about it to do that job. And that population seems to always gain all their weight back. And you're exactly right. Even with the weight loss surgery, we're talking about a $20,000 surgery. We literally physically cut out part of your stomach. But if patients mentally aren't ready to do something to prolong that, and that's why even before doing the surgery, almost all insurances require a psychiatric evaluation. The point of that is to make sure that mentally, hey, do you know what you're getting yourself into? And then B, are you ready to do the lifestyle part of it that you cannot neglect? It's not like I cut out your stomach, all things are good. Now you're just going to eat liquid Cheetos versus, right? Which people do.
Yeah. Or live off of just protein shakes or, you know, there's no real good quality of life in that. And the weight loss with kind of some of these more drastic measures, you know, is more of, it's a starvation diet, essentially. Correct. So, you know, if you don't make a really conscious effort to make sure that your macronutrients and micronutrients are all balanced out, you're going to be losing a lot of weight. Yes. But, you know, in some studies it, you know, even mentions up to like 30% of your weight loss is going to come from muscle, bone, connective tissue, all the stuff that we don't want to lose. So if we're not making, you know, an effort to maintain all of that and just letting ourselves basically starve to lose weight, it's not really the best case scenario in the long run.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was talking to, you know, our nurses and really when you talk about it like that, this is like chemical anorexia, which is essentially right. You know, with anorexia, it's a long-term eating disorder. We know it's a problem because people just don't eat, literally sometimes for days. And what will happen is literally they will shrivel away. I mean, they're losing weight, yes, but they're losing bone mass and muscle mass, and they just don't look healthy. They're not increasing exercise to offset any of those things, most of the time. And what happens is they start having metabolic issues because they're just not eating enough. Well, with this method, it's exactly the same thing. And sooner or later, we've learned before, your metabolism will slow. It will slow down to match the calorie intake, which is why people plateau. And the moment you start eating back to normal, your weight will skyrocket back. And most of the studies show, a year to lose the weight, 6 months to gain it back, which is not ideal.
Right. And that hit on your metabolism can last, some think like 6 years or more. You know, your metabolism slows and just doesn't recover back to its previous level. So it's really hard to, you know, get it back off.
Yeah. So let's start with, okay. So Melissa, let's talk now. People who've been on it, they're panicking now, right? Like, so people are literally going to Mexico. They're trying to find it because if they don't have it, they kind of know the writing's on the wall. Like, we're going to gain it back. But we can do things in our lifestyle that can mimic what Ozempic does to us. So the first one being eating less, right? So a lot of people say when I'm on Ozempic, I don't eat as much. What maybe food wise, but maybe the way we talk about it is, you know what? There are foods that will make you feel fuller, kind of like Ozempic does, and you don't eat as much. How does that work in our diet?
Yeah, well, and that's exactly what the medicine does, essentially. It kind of affects those triggers and the feedback loop that tells us we're full. So yeah, there are certain foods in our diet where, you know, we can eat it and we don't really feel all that full. And then other foods where we can eat it and we're almost having to force ourselves to finish it because we get full really fast. Right. So a few things that do cause, you know, increased fullness, plenty of fiber in the diet. Also protein can be very satiating and send those signals of fullness. And, you know, choosing lean protein sources, complex carbohydrates that have fiber, those types of things. And then also healthy fats, can be very satiating and, help us feel fuller, faster, and longer. Yeah.
So, right. Examples of things that are like healthy fats, like avocados, right? Salmon, fishes, almonds, nuts, seeds, those things have a lot of healthy fat. And sometimes eating more of those in your diet will make you feel fuller so that you don't eat as much. Mm-hmm. Like you said, things high in fiber. So those are things like celery, kale, broccoli. These things naturally make you feel fuller so you don't eat as much. And they're also very low calorie, but nutrient dense foods. And so these are the things that we tell people you can substitute into your diet or add it into your diet, and that will literally make you eat less naturally without adding a lot of calories to your food.
Right. Yeah. There's a really good illustration that shows like a picture of a stomach with 500 calories worth of fruits and vegetables. Mm-hmm. And it's like the stomach is jam packed because you would have to eat a bunch of fruits and vegetables to get 500 calories. And obviously you're going to feel very full because your whole stomach is expanded. Yeah. Whereas say 500 calories of like chips or a candy bar or things like that, it's actually a very kind of small portion. It may make you feel, full or satisfied temporarily, but it's not sending those signals that your whole stomach is full for very long. It's going to kind of just pass right through, and soon enough your stomach is empty again and you're hungry again. Yeah.
And I've had that experience before where like we went to an apple orchard in Georgia, and they're like unlimited apples. You're picking them, which is amazing that you pay them to pick your own apples. You're like, how did y'all do this? But you're packing your bag, and then like you can eat whatever you want because they're literally falling out of the tree. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, I'm gonna eat a bajillion. And literally after like 2, you're like, I can't eat another apple.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably only a couple hundred calories, right. If even that,
Yeah. So exactly. So things like that, like, if you want to lower how much you're eating, sometimes it's just a matter of substituting different foods. Like you're right. Like when you want a snack, instead of going to the vending machine and getting a bag of Cheetos or Fritos, which is like 350 calories, get an apple. The apple will make you feel way fuller, way more nutrients, it's just better all around. And it's cheaper than a bag of Cheetos too. Yeah. So, another thing I thought, and I don't think we wrote this down as far as eating less, is actually chewing your food. Mm-hmm. Like slow down when you're eating. So that's another maybe tip that we can start with. When we chew food and we sit there and let our brain kind of think about eating, it is sending signals to the brain that, hey, you're eating something, your mouth is chewing, food is coming down. There's signals that are being sent. Now, most of us with kids, we're just inhaling food, right? Even as a resident, when I was a resident physician, you never know when your pager's going off. You're like, we're here, weird silence. You're inhaling food, and you're right. You're one of those, like, you inhale, and next thing you know, in 20 minutes, your stomach feels like it's about to explode because your stomach's like, wait, I didn't expect there was this much food coming in. So sometimes even sitting down, chewing your food slowly and kind of thinking about, like, looking at what you're putting in your mouth, and that will actually make you eat less too.
Yeah. Just kind of having some mindfulness around it. Thinking about why you're eating instead of, is this just habit or is this just the normal amount that I would normally eat? Give your body time to actually tell you if you've had enough, because you're right. Like it takes about 20 minutes for all those signals to really finally tell your brain that you're full. And so if you've really been kind of just shoving down anything you can for the past 20 minutes, by the time you finally do start to get those signals of fullness, you've already overdone it. Yeah. But if you slow down, pay attention to what you're doing, it'll help you, stop sooner and stop from overeating.
Yeah. And, a lot of times we talk about like family dinners. Of course, family dinners are really good for the family unit, relationship with parents and spouses and kids. But one thing family dinner does also is you're talking to each other, right? Mm-hmm. So you're not like, although my kids are like shoveling their food so they can get down and go play. But you're talking, you're eating, you're giving your body a chance to feel the food come in and then tell your brain like, you know what? I'm okay. And another piece on that is we don't have to eat till we're stuffed.
Right.
Most in Asian communities, they say you eat till you're 80%, so you eat to the point where you're like, I feel enough, but I don't feel like I need to unbuckle my belt. You know, that's a good time to like actually change our brain to think like, that's a good time to stop. Not like, oh, I went to the buffet, I paid $20, I'm going to eat $20 worth of food till I can't walk, because that doesn't, you got to eat again later, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Melissa, going on along that, part of it also is listening to your hunger signals, right? So if you want to eat less, part of it is just paying attention to when you're actually hungry. So sometimes, I'll be working and I'm hungry and it's like, okay, I just ate. So am I hungry because I'm actually hungry? Am I hungry because I'm actually thirsty, which I just need to drink some water? Or am I hungry because I'm bored? Like I'm just typing on the computer. I just want to put something in my mouth to chew on it. Like that, just taking a second to pay attention to that actually can help you make a better decision on what to do.
Yeah, I think people, we eat for all kinds of reasons, but I think that's, even the boredom aspect, or even just kind of needing that little break. I think a lot of people, you would think working from home would be like the key to being able to stay on track, but we've seen exactly the opposite. Like, I feel like everybody I talk to that works from home, it's such a challenge because, they're in one spot all day and their only break or their really only outlet is like to get up and go to the kitchen, because it's not like you're sitting there with your coworkers or anything like that. And so they'll use their break as a time to, get up from their computer, but then that's automatically associated with eating, or just even mindless snacking while they're doing their work at their desk. And so those types of things, just ask yourself, is this something my body really needs right now? Am I hungry or am I just using this for, a break?
Yeah. Yeah. And, even along those lines, right? If you're hungry, but you're actually thirsty, increasing your water intake is helpful. I've had patients where they, if they go out to eat to avoid overeating, they actually increase, like they drink a big glass of water before they start eating. And that's helpful too, because your stomach is already starting to expand. And again, it gives you a chance to not overeat. And right, if you're thirsty, there's no point to eat a Snickers bar. Just drink some water, and those are the things we call mindful eating, where people just take a second, slow down, pay attention to what your body is telling you. And it's not just habit, like, it's 2:00. I'm tired because I ate too much for lunch, so I'm just going to eat another snack.
Yeah. And I think that's part of what the appeal for these medications is. It's one of those things where, if the medicine's doing it for me, then I don't have to have that conversation with myself and really decide, am I actually hungry? Is this just a craving? Am I just bored? The medicine kind of just takes care of that for you because you're just already feeling full. It takes the effort out of it, but at what cost? About $1,000 a month.
Yeah, a house payment.
Yeah.
Which I heard they're going up on the price. It's supposed to go to like $1,700.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
They're making a killing.
Which is unfortunate for our diabetics who could really benefit from it and are having a really hard time getting it.
Yeah, exactly. In the diabetics, we actually have data that it will help with heart disease. So, and with the non-diabetics, we don't have any of that data yet. So, you're right. That's a piece that, we didn't touch about this in the beginning, but we're getting to the point where people who really need a medication can't get the medicine anymore. And so it makes us as clinicians kind of pause for a second and be like, hey, for the sake, and based on data and based on what we've seen, we're not using this resource right. The medicine is good. I mean, it's a fine medicine, but there's a population that really benefits from it, and there's a population that might not benefit so much from it, that can do it some other way. And like you said, yes, the appeal is like, I can just give, and I have patients that say, I give it, I don't think about anything anymore. It helps with my cravings, which we'll actually talk about that. But at what cost? And again, how long does it last? And maybe if the cravings are a problem, we need to talk about your cravings.
Yeah. And what did it cut out for you that you don't have to think about anymore? I think we mentioned that before, but really, was it like the late night snacking after dinner, or was it the nibbling on things at your desk? Which of those things did being on the medication eliminate for you? And then how are you going to maintain that though when you can't get the medicine, or do you even need the medicine to really be able to like cut that out?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think, You know, I remember talking to a patient before and he's like, I don't eat anything. I can't cut anything out. I don't have any, bad foods. And he tells me what he eats. And you're like, okay, that doesn't sound too bad. And after he got his hands on some of Ozempic, he's like, yeah, it really helped with my middle of the night, Cinnamon Toast Crunch craving. And you're like, how much Cinnamon Toast Crunch were you eating at night? And he's like, oh, just a bowl. I was like, how big is the bowl? And it's not the little serving size bowl. It ends up being like 4 servings of what it is on the box. And it's like that medicine stopped that. But did you need that medicine? Like, could you just not buy that and stop it for free?
Yeah. And that's what we've talked about before too, about just being really honest with yourself, I think we talked about that a little bit last week, just kind of taking an honest assessment of what you're doing every day. Usually you can find something that the medicine would help you with if you got on it. But maybe just kind of reevaluating that and seeing, well, is there another way that I can eliminate that instead?
Yeah. I think a lot of the patients have done very well in our clinic through lifestyle. A lot of them have had to purge out their pantry. Like they've had to go in there, kind of look at everything they snack on. Like if it's a box of Cheez-Its, if it's, a roll of Girl Scout cookies, they just realize that if I have this in my house, I'm going to eat it. But it's expensive now with inflation and I don't want to eat it. And so if they don't waste their money on buying that actually helps out a lot, which is another piece that people might, like I said, I've always asked patients, if you really want an honest assessment, take photos of what you're eating and then come and we can talk about it. No one does that because no one has done that yet, I guess, because I think once they start taking photos, they start realizing, oh shoot, I am eating way more than I thought I was, which I think bringing us to maybe one of our near end points is dinner. So this is something we don't talk a lot about, intermittent fasting. I was going through some articles because I think that'll be something we will probably touch base on sooner or later because it's something that a lot of people are doing. And maybe there's a good way to do it and a way that's not so healthy to do it. But there was an article published, I think it was last summer or late this winter, essentially looking at styles of fasting. The one that's most common is people skip breakfast and eat the rest of the day. And then another way to do it is you eat breakfast and lunch and you kind of skip dinner. And based on the data, the ones that are skipping dinner have the more consistent readings, which, okay, at first we thought, okay, it's just a time thing, but we start realizing most people do most of their damage at dinner time, right? That's when you go home, it's been a busy day. You want to eat everything in sight because you weigh under 8 the rest of the day. So you eat like crazy. And then afterwards, you want the ice cream for dessert. You want something sweet for dessert. So you start having it. And next thing you know, you go straight to bed a few hours later, or you're just sedentary. And there are signals in the body that, hey, during the daytime, we need to exercise. We're using this energy. We're burning it. We're going to burn it. And at bedtime is rest and digest. Oh, snap. We ate a whole bunch of food. We're going to really break this apart. Oh, and this food is not great for us. So we're going to absorb it all and store it. And that might be an area where people need to focus on too is, okay, if we can't get this medicine, can't get the craving stopped, we're working on portion control. Dinner is a good area to kind of focus on to control that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people do tend to, maybe restrict during the day, especially if they're trying to get into any type of calorie deficit. They may skip breakfast, as part of like a intermittent fasting, it used to just be skipping breakfast, but they'll skip breakfast, maybe eat like a salad for lunch because they're, trying to, stay on track, that's part of their plan, whatever. But I mean, really, by the time you get home, if you've only had a few hundred calories all day, you're going to be starving.
Right.
And so, yeah, you're going to eat everything in sight. You'll probably go back after dinner for more because your body is trying to compensate for everything you skip through the day.
Right.
And so when we're our most active, our busiest, we need to fuel our body for it. And so that may look like eating a larger breakfast, or a larger lunch, whatever you want your largest meal of the day, and then just a lighter dinner. Or by the time you eat a couple large meals of the day during your most active time, by the time you get home, you're not as hungry.
Right.
You're not that like starving, give me everything in sight. You're just ready for a normal dinner.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I think those are all really good points, to kind of recap, this meant, and we're going to end it on a happy note, right, Melissa? Because sometimes I was like, I'm afraid we're going to come scorched earth and just blast. But, right now, there is a shortage. People cannot get the medication to the point that the diabetics can't even get the medication. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
B, people are doing crazy things to get it. I mean, they're flying to Canada, they're flying to Mexico, they're buying it from sources that we don't even know. So we're not even clear what we're injecting in our body.
And even compounding, right here, you don't have to leave the country for that. But yeah, you're probably not getting, you may not be getting, the real thing.
Correct.
If you're getting a compounded version.
Right. And Melissa, do we really need to go to Mexico where the cartels are?
Please don't.
Yeah. I mean, goodness gracious. Those stories on the news, that's just like, oh my goodness. And so everybody's afraid, right? They're going to gain weight, and most people will if they don't learn how to change things. And so, right, the tips that we talked about when it comes to eating less, right? We're talking about things like eating more foods that will make you full, like healthy fats, protein, like lots of fruits and vegetables, cutting out the things that spike sugars, like candy and sweets and stuff like that. Those really trigger more hunger hormones. We talk about things like listening to your body, right? Increasing fluid intake. Do you need all that food? Are you really hungry? We talk about slow down your eating, focus on it. Let the brain process what you put in your mouth so that your brain will tell you when you're full, and not eating to the point that you're so stuffed you can't eat anymore. Maybe eat to 80% and then you're good. When we talked about things like how it deals, those Ozempic deals with cravings, you can do that on your own. You don't have to buy the Oreos, especially if that's your weakness. Cheese is your weakness. Don't even put it in the house. And we've had patients that do that, and they've done very, very well. Now, the last piece I would say, I don't want people to, a lot of people look at this. They look at, okay, if I have to restrict my food, if I have to restrict my diet, it's a punishment to my body, right? It's like, I don't know. It's like when your parents used to yell at you for doing things. It's like, look at it in a negative light. But really, self-discipline, and it's probably one of the best ways to love your body, right? To take care of your body. And we're not taking care of it so we can go look great at a beach. Of course, yeah, everyone wants to look fine. But we're taking care of it so that you can walk when you're older without a cane, right? You can run with their grandkids. You can play soccer with them. You can play soccer with your kids. You can jump on the trampoline with them. They want to do a 5K, you can do a 5K with them. That's what we're shooting for. It's not just to lose weight for the sake of looking some type of way, because I don't know if that motivation usually pans out well, but the self-love that we're taking care of for our body right now by self-discipline is actually a positive thing, not a negative thing. Right.
Yeah. I think, you're right. Self-discipline can have like a negative light around it. People, may look at it more as, being hard on yourself, or maybe you shouldn't be so hard on yourself when you're really just, trying to make it through each day. But you're right. Taking care of yourself now is, it's a form of self-care, and it's making sure that you keep your body and your mind, and everything in good condition so that you can have a full quality of life. There's so many limitations that can be placed on our body with chronic disease. And if we're not actively doing things to prevent that, then, we're setting ourselves up to, have a decreased quality of life down the road in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah. So exactly right. So that's the reason you get up at 4:30 to work out, Melissa.
Yeah.
And I'm dangling on a pull-up bar with my arms. I mean, it's right. It's one of those things like we realize we're investing in our body now to take good care of it so that in the future you can use it. And we're using it now. I mean, we're taking advantage. You get the energy now, but even for the future, we're planning for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Melissa, any final thoughts that you have?
I think that wraps it up pretty nicely, and yeah, we talk about these things a lot, and it's not, being hard on anyone, but it's also, having a realistic, view of what these medicines actually do and what you can do for yourself without medication. I think that if people knew that they had the power to do it all themselves and, felt like that they would be able to see the results that they want without any external help. I think just having that, shift in perspective and some new confidence and things like that and the right guidance too. I think you can be successful without having to, stress over whether you can get one of these medications.
Perfectly said. Right. We're an empowering podcast.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So all that being said, next week then, we will probably talk about this motivation thing. We did a poll on our Common Sense Medicine, and thank you for everyone who answered. We had like 100 people respond on there. And we found out that people who've started something new, diet or exercise, has very little to do with what we said, which was kind of sad. I was like, man, I'm kind of wasting my breath. A lot of it is social media, but the big majority is self-motivation. And reading the comments, which again, we appreciate comments, that was actually very eye-opening, very encouraging for us to see that, hey, something clicked. They were ready to change. They were able to, some of them did it on their own. Some came to our clinic and we were able to further their motivation, and people are doing well. So how do we know we're ready? How to get ready? Especially even with things like this. I can't get the medication. How do I mentally get myself ready versus just falling into depression and be like, why quit? I can't get the medicine. I can't do it anymore. No, you can do it. Right? We're not balls of just hormones. We can do things. But we'll probably talk about that next week.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, Melissa, next week it is.
All right.